In the grainy black and white photograph dated 1931, a lively fairground bustles with life. Families gather around colorful stalls. Children laugh and chase each other beneath fluttering pennants, and the air seems almost alive with joy and excitement. The carousel spins in the background, and men and women in their Sunday best mingle, caught in a moment of carefree celebration amid the hardships of the era. It's a scene frozen in time, a rare glimpse of happiness during an otherwise difficult decade. Yet, in the bottom right corner of the photo stands a solitary figure who seems to absorb none of the fair's merriment. She is a woman, dressed plainly, her posture stiff and withdrawn. Her eyes hold a haunted look, and her expression is unreadable, part sadness, part something darker. Those who have studied the photo say there's an unmistakable chill that radiates from her presence, a tension that unsettles anyone who looks closely. Rumors passed down through generations whisper that she was someone everyone deliberately avoided, a shadow cast over an otherwise cheerful day. The photograph itself was lost to time until decades later, when it was discovered tucked away in a forgotten attic trunk, covered in dust and mystery. Historians, family descendants, and collectors alike found themselves captivated by the image. But it was the lone woman who drew the most questions. Who was she? Why did she stand apart from the crowd? What was the story behind her isolation? As the investigation into her identity unfolds, this single photograph reveals much more than a day at the fair. It uncovers layers of local history, hidden social tensions, and dark secrets lurking beneath the surface of the community's joyful facade. The woman's story is a haunting reminder that even the brightest moments can hold shadows, and some faces carry stories that refuse to be forgotten. In 1931, the world was deep in the grip of the Great Depression. Whether in England or America, economic hardship had seeped into every corner of daily life. Factories slowed or shuttered, unemployment soared, and families struggled to put food on the table. The streets of towns and villages bore the weary faces of those burdened by uncertainty. Yet amidst the gloom, people sought moments of respite, brief escapes from the harsh realities outside. It was in this spirit that fairgrounds became beacons of hope, offering an oasis of joy for working-class families who otherwise faced relentless struggle. Fairgrounds were more than just places of amusement. They were vital communal gatherings where people came together to momentarily forget their troubles. The bright lights, vibrant colors, and the hum of carnival music promised laughter and a temporary return to innocence. In these spaces, parents could see their children's faces light up with wonder, and neighbors could exchange stories and smiles in shared solidarity. Despite the economic and social divides that fractured communities, the fairground provided a rare unifying experience. The photograph in question captures one such fairground scene on a bright summer day in 1931. It's a frozen frame of life at its most lively and hopeful. The image is dense with detail, the towering Ferris wheel rising majestically against a gray sky, children clutching cotton candy and gleefully tugging at their parents' hands, couples strolling hand in hand, dressed in their Sunday best, vendors calling out to passers-by, peddling roasted peanuts, colorful balloons, and game tickets. The scene hums with energy, the laughter, chatter, and clinking sounds of games blending into a lively symphony of communal joy. This photograph is more than a simple snapshot. It's a window into a fragile moment when hardship was briefly held at bay by community spirit and simple pleasures. The fairground was a rare occasion for connection, a balm to the aching soul of a generation battered by economic despair and social uncertainty. It reflected the resilience of people who, despite adversity, still sought celebration and togetherness. The people captured in the frame represent this vibrant diversity. Families of all sizes, their faces alight with happiness and anticipation. Children in hats and dresses, frozen mid-run as they chase each other with innocent delight. A man holding a balloon for his young daughter, his eyes soft with paternal pride. Nearby, a pair of performers dressed in colorful costumes smile and wave, adding a touch of whimsy to the gathering. The crowd is alive and engaged, fully immersed in the fairground's magic. Yet, amidst this tapestry of joy and movement, one figure stands apart, an unmistakable contrast to the scene's otherwise festive spirit. The woman in the corner is an anomaly. While others mingle freely, she remains isolated, standing rigidly with her hands clasped tightly before her. Her clothing is plain, almost drab compared to the bright fabrics worn by those around her. Her expression is somber, eyes downcast or fixed on some unseen point beyond the frame. There is no hint of a smile, no sign of participation in the merriment that surrounds her. This stark difference has drawn the attention of those who have studied the photograph closely. The woman seems like a shadow, present but unseen, physically there but socially absent. Her posture is defensive, closed off, and her gaze carries a weight that none of the others share. It's as if an invisible barrier separates her from the crowd, a silent signal that she is to be avoided. Early observers and researchers have speculated on her identity and story, but answers remain elusive. Was she an outcast, rejected by the tight-knit community for reasons lost to history? Perhaps a grieving widow, carrying a sorrow too heavy to share amidst public celebration. Or could she have been the subject of gossip and suspicion, a social pariah marked by scandal or misfortune? Some have even suggested darker possibilities: illness, mental distress, or a secret that made her unwelcome. Whatever the truth, the woman's presence introduces a layer of complexity and intrigue to the photograph. Her story hints at hidden fractures beneath the surface of the joyous gathering. In a scene meant to unite, she stands divided, a symbol of exclusion amid inclusion, mystery amid familiarity. Her figure challenges us to look beyond the smiles and laughter to the untold stories etched quietly into the fabric of the past. As eyes linger on the photograph, it becomes clear that the woman in the corner is the story's silent focal point, a figure who demands closer scrutiny. At first glance, her presence is subtle, almost easy to overlook amid the fairground's bustle. But the more one studies her, the more questions arise. Her dress is plain and threadbare, the fabric faded and frayed at the edges. Unlike the other attendees, who sport their Sunday best or colorful costumes, she wears a modest, dark garment that appears ill-fitting and worn. The dress's simplicity speaks of hardship, either economic poverty or deliberate withdrawal from society's attention. There is no jewelry, no ornamentation, nothing to suggest celebration. Instead, her clothing marks her as different, someone outside the day's festivities. Her hands are tightly clasped before her, knuckles white with tension, fingers interlaced as if holding back a storm of emotion. The posture is rigid and defensive, a physical barrier that separates her from the open joy around her. Her shoulders are slightly hunched, as though burdened by unseen weight. The way she holds herself conveys a deep reserve of anxiety, sorrow, or shame. The woman's eyes, however, are the most haunting feature. Though the grainy quality of the photograph blurs fine details, her gaze seems distant, vacant, haunted by memories or fears that linger beneath the surface. There is a hollow intensity there, a loneliness that cuts through the crowd's noise. Her face is pale, shadowed under a simple hat, with deep lines that suggest hardship beyond her years. Her expression is unreadable but filled with quiet suffering. Around her, the space subtly empties. People seem to give her a wide berth, their bodies angling away, their faces avoiding direct contact. Though no one appears openly hostile, there is an unspoken agreement to keep distance, a silent social exclusion. Whether conscious or not, this avoidance marks her as an outsider, someone whom others refuse to engage with. The photograph captures this invisible barrier between her and the crowd. Is there something symbolic in her clothing or demeanor? Her dark dress and reserved posture may hint at mourning or a deep personal loss. Alternatively, they might indicate social stigma, poverty, illness, or scandal that isolated her from the community. Some have speculated that her appearance signals mental distress, a condition misunderstood and feared at the time. Whatever the truth, the photograph immortalizes a figure burdened with a story of hardship and exclusion. Who was this woman? Initial investigations into local archives and census records have sought to uncover her identity. Researchers combed through town registries, birth and death certificates, and newspaper archives, piecing together fragments of information. Yet, no clear name or biography has emerged conclusively linked to the photograph. the woman remains elusive, both known and unknown. Local historians and descendants of fair attendees have provided invaluable oral histories. Several elders recalled vague stories of a woman who didn't quite belong, someone who was whispered about in hushed tones but never named. One recalled a tale of a woman who lived on the outskirts of town, rumored to be a single mother, ostracized for reasons unclear but remembered for her quiet sadness. Others hinted at superstitions, that she was marked by misfortune or even accused of bringing bad luck. Gossip from the era paints a picture of a woman burdened by scandal, real or imagined. Was she abandoned by a partner? Did she bear a child out of wedlock at a time when such circumstances were harshly condemned? Could she have been an immigrant, facing xenophobia in a tight-knit community fearful of outsiders? Perhaps she was suspected of witchcraft or mental illness, labels that in 1931 could lead to lifelong social exclusion. Her isolation, whether self-imposed or forced, reflects broader social dynamics of the era. The 1930s were not kind to women who deviated from societal norms. Women were expected to fulfill specific roles, dutiful daughters, wives, and mothers. Those who challenged or failed these roles often faced stigma, marginalization, or worse. Mental health was poorly understood, and conditions like depression or trauma were stigmatized or hidden. Women who struggled with poverty, illness, or scandal often became invisible or targets of harsh judgment. The emotional isolation evident in her posture and expression is a poignant testament to this social reality. She embodies the loneliness faced by many vulnerable women of the time, those who existed on the fringes, struggling silently beneath a veneer of social order and festivity. In a community gathered for celebration, she is an embodiment of exclusion, a human shadow cast by fear, misunderstanding, or prejudice. Understanding the role of women in 1931 society helps frame her story. Women's rights were limited. They faced economic dependence, restricted employment opportunities, and rigid moral codes. Deviations from these expectations could result in ostracism. Was this woman challenging these norms through her status, behavior, or simply by being different? Or was she simply a victim of circumstance and social cruelty? Her figure in the photograph challenges us to confront uncomfortable questions about judgment, empathy, and the invisibility of suffering. She is a symbol of those erased from history's happy snapshots, reminding us that every community holds hidden stories of pain and resilience. The search to uncover the woman's family background quickly became a complex puzzle, pieced together from dusty genealogical records, faded census data, and brittle parish registers. Several women matching her age and general description surfaced, yet none could be definitively identified as the figure in the photograph. Among these candidates was a woman from a working-class family whose early life was marked by hardship. Her father had died tragically in a factory accident when she was just a child, forcing her mother to raise multiple siblings on an unstable income. This family's history carried whispers of scandal, rumors of illegitimacy among siblings, a social stain that could ripple across generations and taint reputations in small communities. The woman herself appeared in records as having lived a transient life, moving frequently and never quite settling, a detail that might explain her detachment in the photograph. Alongside official documents, letters discovered in a neighboring village hinted at bitter family conflicts and financial distress, painting a portrait of turmoil and fractured relationships. While none of these details conclusively linked her to the Fairground image, they cast a long shadow of struggle and societal rejection that might have shaped her isolated demeanor. Exploring her life before the moment captured in the photograph opens many possibilities, each as compelling as it is elusive. Was she simply a visitor to the fair, passing through with little connection to the community? Or did she work there, quietly and on the margins, as a vendor selling refreshments, a helper in one of the booths, or perhaps even a performer whose presence went unnoticed by most? Local employment records from that year include many women taking on seasonal fairground jobs. Yet the woman's name does not appear. Descendants of those who worked at the fair recalled an enigmatic figure, often on the outskirts, quiet and withdrawn, never fully accepted by the regular staff. Some oral histories suggest she might have been fleeing from personal troubles, a violent home situation, crushing poverty, or even a criminal accusation. Police logs from the period reveal a woman fitting her description involved in a minor scandal, a dispute that escalated in public but never resulted in formal charges. Nevertheless, the damage to her reputation was done, and social consequences in a small town were swift and unforgiving. The historical context of local events around 1931 adds further depth to the investigation. The region suffered a series of devastating fires that ravaged the poorer quarters of town, leaving many families homeless and desperate. It is possible that the woman was among those displaced, wandering the fairground as a refuge amid chaos. Illness also ravaged the community during that period, with outbreaks of tuberculosis and influenza that sowed fear and stigma. If she or her family were afflicted, it might explain the fearful avoidance she encountered. The town's newspapers from the time describe petty crimes and disturbances coinciding with the fair's arrival. Some local stories refer to a mysterious woman spotted near incidents of theft and disorder. Although likely exaggerations born from rumor, such associations could have intensified suspicion around her. These overlapping hardships and societal fears created an environment ripe for scapegoating, and she may have become an unwilling symbol of misfortune to the fearful townspeople. Despite exhaustive efforts, no personal diaries, letters, or journals definitively belonging to the woman have ever surfaced. This absence is poignant, reflecting the broader invisibility of marginalized individuals in history. Her voice, lost or never recorded, leaves a haunting silence. Archivists stress that such silences are meaningful. They reveal how many stories, especially of those isolated or stigmatized, remain unwritten and unheard. The lack of personal artifacts forces researchers to reconstruct her narrative from external fragments, official records, rumors, and secondhand accounts. This patchwork highlights the emotional weight of exclusion, reminding us how easy it is for entire lives to vanish from the historical record. Family collections, often locked away or inaccessible, may still hold undiscovered clues, but for now, her story remains a ghostly outline rather than a full portrait. A turning point in the woman's story may lie in a local court case recorded just weeks before the fair. Court documents detail the proceedings against a woman charged with disturbing a town meeting, protesting the eviction from her rented home. The transcripts reveal her desperation and plea for understanding, met instead with cold dismissal and eventual removal by authorities. The newspaper coverage of the case was harsh, with editorials condemning her as disruptive and a threat to social order. This scandal divided the community. While some expressed sympathy for her plight, many branded her a troublemaker and social menace. Eyewitnesses recall seeing a woman fitting her description wandering the outskirts of the fairground during the festivities but never fully engaging. If she was indeed the woman from the photograph, it captures a moment of forced exile, physically present but shunned, caught between defiance and alienation. The tension in her posture and gaze might reflect the emotional turmoil of a woman battling both personal and communal rejection. Piecing together these fragments reveals a life shaped by hardship and marked by social exclusion. Her family's fractured past, struggles for survival, brushes with scandal, and the harsh realities of a community gripped by fear and suspicion all contributed to her isolation. Yet, behind the photograph's frozen frame lies a story of resilience. The endurance of someone who, despite adversity, remained part of the community's fabric, if only on its margins. The woman's quiet suffering mirrors the experiences of countless others whose lives remain unrecorded, but whose presence shaped the texture of their times. Her story is a stark reminder of the social hierarchies and judgments that dictated who belonged and who was cast aside during an era of widespread hardship. As we consider her place in history, we also confront the limitations of our knowledge. Without her own voice or personal documents, her identity and full story may remain forever elusive. The photograph preserves her image, a silent testament to her existence and her exclusion. It challenges us to acknowledge those erased by history's spotlight, to remember that behind every shadow lies a human story waiting to be told. The woman in the 1931 Fairground photo is both a mystery and a symbol, an enduring figure who embodies the complexities of poverty, social judgment, and survival in a time of profound uncertainty. In small towns and villages during the early 20th century, The response to anyone who seemed different or failed to conform to societal norms was often harsh and unyielding. Communities were close-knit and cautious, relying heavily on social cohesion to maintain order in difficult times. Outsiders or those who exhibited unusual behavior were frequently met with suspicion, fear, or outright rejection. In many cases, people were quick to attribute misfortune or unexplained events to the presence of the other, individuals who didn't fit into the accepted mold. This fear was sometimes fueled by rumors of disease, especially during outbreaks of illnesses like tuberculosis or influenza, when the healthy sought to distance themselves from the sick. More insidiously, whispers of witchcraft or superstition could brand a woman as a threat to the community's moral or physical well-being. In such a charged environment, even a solitary figure at a fairground could be cast as an omen of bad luck or moral decay. These dynamics shaped how the woman in the photograph was perceived, not just as a person, but as a symbol of things the community wished to exclude or forget. During the 1930s, mental illness was poorly understood and deeply stigmatized. Conditions such as depression, anxiety, or trauma were often dismissed as weakness or moral failing rather than legitimate health issues. Psychiatric care was rudimentary, and institutionalization frequently meant confinement in grim, isolated facilities with little hope for rehabilitation. It is possible that the woman suffered from some form of mental distress that made her appear withdrawn or odd to those around her. Without modern support systems, she would have been left vulnerable, her behavior misunderstood and feared. The rigid social codes of the time left little room for empathy or assistance, especially for women who were expected to maintain composure and fulfill domestic roles. If her mental state deviated from these norms, neighbors and townsfolk may have labeled her as mad or dangerous, further deepening her isolation. The combination of ignorance and fear meant that such women were often marginalized rather than helped, their struggles hidden behind a veil of silence and shame. Economic hardship during the Great Depression exacerbated social tensions and bred an environment ripe for scapegoating. When communities faced widespread unemployment, poverty, and insecurity, they often sought convenient targets on whom to blame their misfortunes. Vulnerable individuals, especially women who lacked family protection or social standing, were easy marks. The woman in the photograph may have been unfairly accused of causing trouble, spreading disease, or otherwise bringing bad luck to the town. This blame could manifest in subtle exclusion, gossip, or even outright hostility. The pressure to find someone responsible for collective suffering distracted from larger systemic failures and provided a false sense of control. For the woman, this meant bearing the burden of communal fears and resentments, her loneliness a reflection of a society struggling to find solidarity in adversity. The intersection of gender and class played a crucial role in marginalizing women like her. In the 1930s, working-class women faced double barriers: economic deprivation and rigid gender roles that limited their opportunities and autonomy. Poverty forced many into unstable employment or dependence on charity, while social expectations demanded conformity to ideals of femininity and motherhood. Women who deviated from these expectations, whether by being single mothers, mentally ill, or outspoken, were often branded as failures or threats to social order. The woman in the photograph may well symbolize this intersection of disadvantage, a figure left behind by economic collapse and moral judgment alike. Her isolation speaks to a broader story of countless women whose struggles went unnoticed or were deliberately ignored. Through her, we glimpse the harsh realities faced by those who existed on society's margins, struggling to survive amid indifference and prejudice. This social context helps explain why the woman was avoided and why her presence at the fairground was met with silent rejection. She was not just an individual, but a living embodiment of the fears and anxieties that gripped the community. Her story, though fragmented, reflects the painful consequences of exclusion based on difference, misunderstanding, and systemic injustice. It reminds us how social mechanisms of fear and stigma can isolate the vulnerable and erase their humanity. In remembering her, we are called to consider how far society has come, and how many shadows still remain in the corners of our collective history. After the moment captured in the 1931 Fairground photograph, the trail of the solitary woman grows faint and tangled. Researchers and local historians have attempted to trace her life beyond that day, but her fate remains shrouded in uncertainty. Some accounts suggest she vanished from the community soon after, moving away in search of anonymity or a fresh start. Others propose a grimmer conclusion, that she was institutionalized, confined to a mental asylum where countless women of her era were sent, often forgotten and overlooked. There are whispers in the archives of a woman matching her description admitted to a nearby facility within months of the fair. If true, this would align tragically with the patterns of social exclusion and misunderstanding that shaped her life. Alternatively, some believe she was imprisoned or forced into exile, removed from society because she was deemed a threat or an embarrassment. The lack of concrete records and the passage of time have turned her life's final chapters into a murky mystery, leaving more questions than answers about her ultimate destiny. Despite her apparent disappearance, the woman's story did not vanish entirely from local memory. Over the years, her image became entwined with a number of local legends and cautionary tales whispered in village pubs and around hearth fires. Some say she became a ghostly figure, a restless spirit wandering the fairgrounds on misty evenings, her sorrowful presence a reminder of the town's darker side. Others tell tales warning children to behave lest they end up like the woman in the corner, a symbol of isolation and despair. These stories reflect both fear and sympathy, preserving her memory as a spectral emblem of exclusion. Yet, for many, she remains a forgotten figure, her identity lost to time, overshadowed by the more visible histories of the town. Her legacy is thus double-edged, part haunting myth, part silent erasure. A final, chilling clue emerged unexpectedly in a collection of long-forgotten documents discovered in a dusty attic decades later. Among letters and journals was a brief diary entry written by a relative who had lived through those turbulent years. The entry revealed a family confession. The woman had been wrongly accused of spreading a disease that had struck the town, a scapegoat for fears fueled by ignorance and prejudice. The entry described her as gentle and kind, burdened by grief after losing a child and struggling silently with mental health challenges that were misunderstood by all around her. This revelation cast her ostracism in a new light, not as deserved punishment but as tragic misunderstanding. The woman everyone avoided was not a pariah by choice or deed, but a victim of circumstance and societal fear. This discovery transformed her story from one of suspicion and isolation into a heartbreaking testament to the human cost of stigma. This newfound perspective adds a poignant layer to the photograph's enduring mystery. The solitary woman, once a figure of cold distance, now emerges as a symbol of injustice and lost compassion. Her presence in the fairground scene is no longer just a shadow cast over a day of joy, but a silent plea for recognition and empathy across the decades. Her story reminds us how easily fear can distort truth and how communities can fail those most in need of understanding. The chilling reveal of her innocence deepens the tragedy of her fate and challenges us to confront our own biases when faced with those who differ from us. In the end, the woman's life and legacy resist simple resolution. She remains a haunting presence in the collective memory, a reminder that history often overlooks the marginalized and misunderstood. Her image in the 1931 Fairground photograph stands as a testament to forgotten lives and untold stories, urging us to look closer at the faces in old photos and the hidden narratives beneath. Though we may never fully know her, the woman everyone avoided asks us to remember her not as a symbol of fear but as a human being deserving of dignity and compassion. A single photograph has the remarkable power to open a window into forgotten worlds, lost stories, and hidden truths. This image of a bustling fairground in 1931, vibrant with joy and community spirit, holds within it something far more complex. A solitary woman standing apart, her expression and posture heavy with unspoken pain. Her presence in the frame serves as a poignant reminder that behind every face in an old photograph lies a deeper story, often invisible to the casual observer. What appears to be a simple moment frozen in time can, upon closer inspection, reveal layers of human experience, of hardship, exclusion, resilience, and loss that otherwise might have slipped silently into history's shadows. This woman's story compels us to reflect on society's mechanisms of judgment and fear. Communities, especially in difficult times, often seek order through conformity and unity, yet this can come at the cost of excluding those who do not or cannot fit the mold. Her isolation speaks to the harsh realities faced by many vulnerable individuals, particularly women, who bore the brunt of social stigma, economic hardship, and misunderstanding. History is full of silenced voices, stories erased by prejudice or neglect, and her image invites us to remember those who were pushed to the margins. It is a call to empathy and a challenge to look beyond the surface, to question whose stories are told and whose are lost. Despite extensive research, much about the woman remains unknown. Her true identity, the full circumstances of her life, and the details of her fate may never be fully uncovered. This lingering mystery is part of what makes her story so haunting and compelling. It invites us to consider the unknown figures in our own family albums, the faces whose lives we barely understand but who shaped the fabric of our communities in ways both visible and unseen. Each photograph holds potential secrets, waiting for the patient eye to uncover. She stands forever on the edge of our memory, a silent witness to the Fairground's forgotten sorrow. The woman who was avoided, shunned, and misunderstood remains immortalized in this moment, both a symbol of societal failure and a testament to human endurance. Her image endures, quietly demanding that we see her, remember her, and honor the stories of those who lived in the shadows of history's spotlight.